I'm pleased to speak with Clara Roquet for the movie Libertad. This is a film that we've been anticipating for quite a while now. Sadly, we are doing a Zoom interview because Clara is in COVID protocol, and sadly, you could not come to Cannes for the time being. So congratulations on an eloquent, beautiful film. It's packed with a lot of stuff that we're going to talk about here. But I just want to begin with, like, how are you doing on July 9th, 2021? Where's your mind at?
Well, my mind is at the test I'm doing this afternoon to see if I can finally make it to Cannes. Yesterday was a bit of a sad day for me because I really wanted to be at the premiere of my home film, obviously. But it was also a very happy day because I felt like the audience really vibrated with the film and we got like very, very good responses. And I realized that, the film has a life of its own. It doesn't need me anymore. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
when you leave at school and you're like, good luck.
Technically, it's not your first time away from Cannes or in Cannes. Another great film of yours that you wrote is Petra. So you have a presence here, but you also workshopped Libertad at the Sundance Labs. The Institute was helpful at the beginning stages in the screenwriting and directing labs. I think there was a couple of years between the two. The first thing I did after seeing this film is I looked up the region of Costa Brava on the search engine. And the first description that I found was gloriously wild in parts and tastefully manicured in others. It's a description that's fitting of your dual teen lead. I was wondering, A, how familiar are you with this region? Is it a postcard in your own memories? If you could take us through the exercise of finding this home, which expresses a lot in terms of how the psyches of the characters might be like.
I really like the definition that you gave of Costa Brava. It's actually Costa Brava for me is my childhood summers and my teenage summers and all my life summers. My family has a house at the Costa Brava, a big family house, smaller than the one in the film. But I spent all the summers of my youth in that house. And the whole family was there, and I have a big family, so there were all these layers and all these generations going around the house. So even though Libertad is not at all an autobiographical film, there was no Libertad in my life, unluckily. It is somehow autobiographical in some aspects of it, in the memories of I feel it's a bit of a nostalgic film in that sense.
So I guess in a way, being from the area allowed you to see the upper crust of societies. If you were a medium, if you were a middle class family, then you were able to see the parallel worlds that exist in this core, this center. So and I imagine finding a home like this that speaks a lot of the truth of the characters is a whole other thing. Obviously, you can dress it up in production design, but talk to me about finding the home.
It was such an important character in the film, really. And we looked at a lot of houses. And I really wanted a house that had a lot of connections between spaces, that you could see many, many layers through one door. And it had this house had this amazing thing of this like really long corridor. And then all the rooms were connected. So you could see one room from inside the other room. And this was endless. It's also a really big house with big open spaces. And I knew that I always wanted to have this connection between spaces. And I also fell in love with the curtains. They had these like flowy pink curtains that became also an important character in the film. And there's something about the Catalan bourgeoisie that I find very, very interesting. It's a bit different than the Spanish bourgeoisie in that they are a tiny bit more cold. Emotions circulate less, they are less touchy, they are a little bit less effective. And there's something that whenever I would watch Bergman movies, I would always relate to them a lot. Like I remember watching Fanny and Alexander and being like, oh wow, like Catalan families are a little bit like that,
There's no mistake in the film's chosen title. There's a double meaning to it. Essentially, it's about a person's first love, not in a traditional way. I think we can relate to the fact that as youths, we're always impressionable, and we always will find a figure that sort of helps shape our DNA and pushes us to like develop our characters. I want to discuss the choice in the film title. Why did you name it Libertad?
Actually, I named at the beginning, at the very beginning, the only two characters that existed were Rosana and Libertad. The film was told through their perspective. And so there wasn't this whole other meaning. I really like the name because it's the name of a cartoon character that I loved when I was a kid, from Mafalda, from Kinos.
Yes.
Kinos are famous. Yeah, well, I think everyone knows Mafalda. It's very famous, especially in Spain and Argentina. And I love that character. It was always my favorite character, and I always loved that name. And then suddenly, when I started writing the larger version of the film, which included the point of view of Nora, because at some point I realized that I couldn't write the story from the point of view of Libertad because it wasn't really my point of view. It was too far from me. I started realizing that the name had a meaning, that the film was about that too, that in a way all these women felt trapped in their own circumstances, and it doesn't depend on how privileged they are. They, even Teresa was like, she represents privilege in this movie. The mother is very much trapped in her circumstances and is trying to escape. So I guess the essential question that the film poses is, what does it mean to be free? Do you need to have like the means and the economic means sometimes in order to achieve that freedom? Does that freedom come from something else? And it doesn't really have an answer, but I guess that's what I like about the question, that it's really hard to answer.
And you have to have the will as well, and some characters are not brave enough to break through those doors. I won't call them walls, but physical doors. And some are more passive. Where were there constraints for you in the writing process?
I think for me, the hardest part was finding the right point of view. Because I actually spent a long time writing this film. I started writing it when I was studying at Columbia University. It was like so many years ago, maybe 7 years ago. And I started writing it from the point of view of Libertad. And I spent the whole year writing it like that, and it wasn't working. It's like the film was not, it didn't have an end. It was a relationship between her and her mom. I felt very lost. I didn't know. I was doing a lot of research and interviews, but I still couldn't write it. And then I was writing another screenplay at the same time that was about this teenage girl, Nora, who spends one last summer with her grandmother. And that screenplay was not very interesting either. It was like lacking something. And I had this professor, my advisors, Andy Vinen, who's the writer of Boys Don't Cry. He's amazing. And he was like, Clara, you're writing the same story with the two screenplays. You're just not realizing. You just need to like put them together. I was like, wow. And suddenly in that moment, everything started working because I found my point of view and I found the right conflict, which was these two girls and their relationships with their moms, because both films were about the relationships with their moms. But if you don't put them together, you don't have like a real conflict between them. So it really was about finding the right point of view.
I was looking at your central character, Nora. She doesn't have the coolness factor. She doesn't have the edge in her femininity in terms of sexual prowess. But she uses her wheels, the euros, and when she breaks a 20, let's say, she finds a way to befriend this person by using her power, and it's very much an exchange between the two. It's an unwritten. One person is helping another person obtain their objectives, their goals. And there's also a great sequence with the mother, who we spend at least 3, 4, 5 minutes where she's found some new clothing and she sheds it away the moment that she finds out that the help might be wearing it as well. And you sort of like dismiss that character or that interaction fairly quickly. So how important was it for you to embed this factor into your film?
For me, it's essential. It's like it was at the core of the film because I think it's a film about a girl who realizes she's privileged and learns how to use that privilege in a way. And I didn't want it to be very obvious because I feel like I'm more drawn to the small moments of change and inflection. It's not like, I don't know, I feel like we cannot choose like what interests us, but somehow for me it's always like when if I can achieve to put the camera in a small moment when you suddenly realize something and you see, I feel like the movie lives in the eyes of Nora and how that look is changing throughout the film and how she's realizing small things and trying to capture those small things and have an accumulation of those result in a change in a character. I find that super fascinating.
Yeah, it's very incremental. Her understanding of just what that is, and essentially when we begin with this character, she's completely unaware, but that's because she's lived a sort of sheltered life, and so who she thinks is family is actually not necessarily family. I want to talk about the casting. Obviously, your two main players, they look different. And this is Nicolle Garcia's first role. So I imagine a lot of the casting in terms of this character had to do with a specific look to the person. So I was thinking a lot about, I don't know what the situation is in your country or this region, but is there a lot of migrant workers that come from South American countries?
Yeah, actually, I was discussing early the whole issue of Spanish colonialism in Latin America. Spain hasn't really done like much thinking about that, and obviously, you know, it was like the big empire and during so many years, and part of the fact that so many of the migrant workers coming to Spain for doing this kind of jobs that people here don't want to do is because of that colonial past, right? Mm-hmm. So most of the migrant workers in Spain, the caregivers, are from, at least in my region, are from Colombia, are from Ecuador, are from a lot of them from Bolivia. Like in Adios, the caregiver was from Bolivia actually. And it's something that we don't talk about that much, you know, and I find it so interesting. And there, you know, you have all these women who are leaving behind their families and their mm-hmm. children to come take care of other people's children, other people's like elderly relatives, because in Spain they make much more money than they would in their home countries, and that's because of this colonial past, right? So mm-hmm. in a way, I feel like we're talking about a much larger issue. The thing is that I didn't want to approach it like that because I feel like it's very hard to approach filmmaking from like big ideas, but it's obviously there.
And I guess it's like there's a barrier, there's a protective layer because people from that region, they look so different. Actually, your film presents Nicolle's character. She's very in tune with her body language is a lot different from the rest of the character set, including her mother. She inhabits, what we think of those countries just with the music and just the way she moves and just how her gestures are so much different.
Absolutely. And it was actually, before you asked me about the casting of Nicolle, and I really wanted Nicolle to come from a similar background as Libertad. So that's why we did street casting in Colombia, because I knew there was no professional actress who could play her. Like, it's impossible. It doesn't exist because usually that character is not in the foreground of the narrative, right? So there are not that many professional actresses who can play Libertad. And we did street casting in Medellin and Cali. I didn't want her to be from Bogota because I feel like bigger cities tend to be can have more influence from Europe, and I don't want that. I don't want her to. I want her to be like very Colombian. And one of the casting people found her skating in the streets of Medellin, and this was this girl with like blue hair and this like attitude, and they were like, "Can we record the video?" And she's like, "Sure." And then she was flying on a plane to Spain to film Libertad, because I saw her. I was like, "Who's this?" Like, she's amazing. She has like a something natural in her, and at the same time she's not at all like the character. She's like very shy, and she has all this like in a way like light and darkness about her because of this experience she has lived. And it was hard for her sometimes to be Libertad, to like be this person who dances in front of people and all of that, because she's not at all like that.
Wow. Oh, that must have been an interesting exercise for her.
Yeah, it was a bit stressful, I think, sometimes. It's hard sometimes to work with young actresses because, and who are not actresses, because you feel you're asking so much of them, and they are so exposed. So I was trying to always like make sure they were okay on an emotional level, and like to create a very like safe space on set for them to feel very, very comfortable, you know?
Yes, yes. This film, you've added a third generation, a third matriarch, and it sort of like relates back to this idea of memory. You know, this is a postcard of something that is in your past. You present it as something that, you know, as a viewer, you'll see this and you'll recognize, you know, your own summer experiences. And so I thought it was a really interesting parallel between um, this idea of memory and how the loss of memory, or the need to hold on to memory as a larger idea. So I was wondering if you could discuss the inclusion of this character and the importance of this character in Libertad.
She was, I think for me, Angela is an essential character. And at some point, I started realizing there were some similarities between her and Libertad. And suddenly I realized these two characters were a mirror of each other, even though it's like, it's a strange concept because they couldn't be more different, right?
They're worlds apart in every way whatsoever, generations apart,
Yeah.
everything apart.
I think their connection, their moments of connection are the truest moments of connection in the film. Like these two people really feel like entrapped in this place, they really want to escape, and they really connect with that. And in a way, the idea of the loss of memory relates to one of the main ideas that I had for the film, which was this idea of the creation of an identity. That identity has a lot to do with memory, right? So Angela is losing her memory, she's also losing her class identity. And that's what makes her connect so much with Rosana and with Libertad. So in a way, what I think this means is that identity is a construction. At the human level, we're all, and class identity is a construction. And through empathy and through love and through friendship, you can, and through maybe the loss of memory, you can erase those barriers between people.
So what were some of the ground rules in terms of the aestheticism, how you wanted to capture this ensemble cast, the any of the two-shot ideas, and also there are stylistic flourishes when you do look at the character of Libertad. There, like I'm thinking of there's a sequence in the when they go to a nightclub, and sort of like the slow-mo element or the cooler elements are reserved to that character.
Well, working with Gris is like one of the best things that's ever happened to me. She's amazing. She puts her whole heart into the film, and you feel like you always have someone who's like pushing for the film as much as you are. So that's really amazing. And I work with her on both my short films, so we really know each other. And for this film, we really wanted the camera to be in the service of the actresses and the story. I was very aware that I was working with non-professional actors, with a dog and with children. And in many moments, we both decided that if our shot was getting in the way of the acting, we would just go handheld and follow the actors. So that was one of the main rules. And then we also decided to pick like some scenes in which we wanted the camera to become alive, and we wanted to allow ourselves to have moments of stylization. To be like, this is not going to be naturalistic because this is another level. And there are a few shots like that. There are a few dollies that track towards like empty walls, or like with a stain, or like there's the clocks shot, or there's a shot through a wall with like photographs, and we wanted to have like shots that echo each other throughout the film, so we worked a lot on that. But I think our golden rule was like, if any of these of course, like if you're just shooting like a clock, it's not a problem to do it all because it's going to be fine. But if we're ever doing a shot that is too complicated and is getting in the way of the actors, just like forget about it. Let's not like risk getting like bad acting for a nice shot. Like never. Like I think everything one. I really like classical films.
Yeah.
I like this idea of having a camera that's in the surface of the story. It is not showing off.
Once picture was locked, did you ever get a sense that you want to return to those characters, or did you just move on and start writing other stuff? Like, what was the pandemic year for you, with the sense that you have something that you just want to push out there and get out into the world, and something that you should be proud of, and yeah, just being stuck?
It's really, I really am. It's really not been an easy year. I've also, my whole family had COVID. My grandfather passed away from COVID. My father was in the hospital. Like, it's been really like, I'm done with COVID. Seriously, like everyone is. I think we're all just so tired of it. But at the beginning, when I realized that we would have to wait a whole year, it was very hard for me because I really wanted to share the film, and I felt almost as if the film didn't exist, you know, because I feel like films become alive when people watch them. It's otherwise it's like you have this ghost of the thing, you know. And this time when I was supposed to watch it with an audience for the first time, I'm gonna be emotional. I couldn't do it, and I was like, wow, like why is this happening, right? Like it looks like the film doesn't want me to watch it, but I decided that to stop feeling sorry for myself because there are obviously bigger problems in this world, and I went back to writing, and I'm writing again with Carlos, another feature. I wrote with Elena Martin, who's another Spanish filmmaker.
Okay.
And I wrote 3 features last year, actually. I was like, let's just get super busy so that I don't think about this film that I'm not being able to premiere. And I wrote a lot of screenplays, and I'm still writing a lot. I'm writing a show now, too, for Amazon. And I am, you know, I feel like I'm very happy when I'm working. So as long as I'm working, you know, I don't think that much about it. But the next time Libertad is premiering somewhere, I don't care where, I'm gonna be flying, and I'm gonna be the first person in the room, and I'm gonna be like, nobody is gonna get me out of here. You know, I really want to watch it.
Well, I'm sure spending your summers near in Costa Brava, you saw people diving for stuff. So find a hazmat suit, find a bubble suit or something, and make it happen. The nerd part of me wants to ask you, when you're writing, how does your day look like? Are you very disciplined? Do you wake up at a specific hour? You have a coffee? You hit final draft? Like, what does writing look like for you? Like, I imagine perhaps even your home is your office, and private life and professional life intermix. So what does a day of writing look like for you?
Actually, I'm trying to be much more organized than I was. Before, I used to be like, sometimes I would write like 12 hours a day, and then have a day when I would be like tired and just watching movies, or like reading stuff. And now I'm trying to work less hours, but like every day. But it takes a lot of discipline, because I feel like I'm more productive when I work like 8 hours a day, or even 7 or 6, and then I have time to rest and do yoga and like run, and see friends, watch movies, and all of that. When I become very obsessive and I work too many hours a day, I don't think the material is that great, you know.
Right.
So I'm trying to be more organized and to have a discipline. And also I'm trying something that I'm trying this year to have the weekends off. Because with the pandemic, at some point, my boyfriend is also a screenwriter.
Yeah.
We were both working all the time because we were like, what else are we going to do, right? It's like just you and me in the house. So we were just working and working Saturday, Sunday, every day, because it was the only thing that made us feel good. And at some point, we were so exhausted and cranky and we decided that we were going to take the weekends off, which is a radical notion for people in filmmaking. You know, you're like, really? You're not going to work in the weekends? And I'm like, no. I feel like if we don't leave, what are we going to talk about if we only work, right?
Yes, you have to experience life. You have to give experiences to your future screenplays and your characters, and that's you got to live outside doors. But yeah, I mean, living in a pandemic, like it's either you were having 7 Mondays in a row or 7 Saturdays in a row, depending where your mindset is at. And when it's 7 Mondays in a row, it's really problematic. So it's an interesting point to be alive, and it'll be an interesting reference point in 20 years from now when we're looking back at Libertad and how it was birthed onto the film scene. I'll leave you with one question. There was another screenplay that you co-wrote that went through the labs at Sundance as well. And curiously, it's the name of the film, I believe, is Costa Brava, Lebanon by Monia Aki, I think is her name.
Akal. Well, it's very hard to pronounce because it's Arabic. It's actually Ahl, but I can't pronounce it. So I won't try.
So this is something that's in the can. She actually shot it.
Yeah.
And so I imagine.
Started last year. I went to Beirut for the shoot. It was amazing. It's such a good film, and it's gonna be huge. They are just finishing. She's doing sound now on the film.
Great.
And you won't believe it. You're gonna love it. I'm so proud of it. And it's called Costa Brava. Funny story, because it's about this family that has retired to live in the mountains, and they are invaded by a landfill. They start building a landfill around them. And in Lebanon, the biggest landfill that they have is in a region that is called Costa Brava. So it's called the Costa Brava landfill. And I was like, what? Like, that's not what? Like, it's so weird. This is a colonial film, but it's also like obviously it's like so ugly and like, and it's called Costa Brava. So we were like, this needs to be the title of the movie, the Costa Brava landfill.
That's great.
Hey, this is Eric from IONCINEMA.com. If you want to support us, subscribe below. For more reviews, interviews, film festival coverage from Sundance, Cannes, Toronto, you want to check out these guys on this side.